During the last few winters, gas-fueled power stations have been threatening to turn off almost daily in order to force the national grid to pay them more for supplying electricity to the UK. Ofgem are now consulting to remove this practice. Here's what they're saying. Hi everyone, I'm Richard Winstone with Over 50s Money. Before we get started, if you want to keep following these consultation videos and get involved to change the energy market for the betterment of consumers, please do subscribe to the Over 50s Money YouTube channel. I'll be posting these videos once or twice a week, and we're looking at live consultations, so it gives you the opportunity to actually get involved and tell Ofgem what you think. Thank you. Right, so Ofgem are consulting on implementing a new license condition for electricity generators. It's called the Inflexible Offers license condition. And the reason it's called Inflexible Offers is because gas-fueled power stations are effectively holding a gun to the head of National Grid on an almost daily basis throughout the winter months. When they know they are needed to stop blackouts across the UK, they are threatening to switch off unless they get paid up to 10, 12 times more than what they do during an average period of that day. So there's a bit of background here. I'll run through it quickly, give me a minute or two, and then I'll tell you what Ofgem are doing to try and stop it, and my response to Ofgem's consultation and how you can get involved. So as a brief explanation, the National Grid has to balance our electricity supply. Okay, so they not only have to make sure that there's enough supply to power every house in the UK and every business throughout the day, they also have to make sure there's not too much, we're not overloading the system. So sometimes they pay wind turbines to turn off and things like that, make sure that we don't overload the system. But they do this in half-hour increments every day to make sure there's enough electricity supply, and they talk to all of the generators of electricity on a constant basis, asking them how much they can supply. To make sure there's enough supply, sometimes energy generators will pay National Grid to let them supply. So if you own a wind turbine and you've got a bunch of electricity stored in a battery somewhere and it costs you £1,000, but you know during peak hours you can get £20,000 for it, you might pay National Grid £5,000 to let you supply the grid. Now those are all made up figures, but you get the illustration there. So some people pay National Grid to let them supply the market. Others, like gas-fueled power stations, where we're reliant on them in winter during peak periods, they get paid by National Grid. Okay, now overall there's a cost. Overall, more generators are paid than they pay, and those costs come to us. These are called balancing costs. Last year it was about £4 billion. If you look back at the last decade, it averages about £1 billion per year. The problem National Grid are seeing is that gas-fueled power stations have realised they could take advantage of the balancing mechanism. They realise how badly they're needed during peak periods in winter, and on an almost daily basis, they are threatening to switch off unless they get paid up to like 12 times more than what they were originally offering to supply at. And they're not just doing this for peak periods. They've been extremely immoral but intelligent for their business. It's kind of awful. So when a gas-fueled power station turns off, it has something called a minimum zero time. Every generator has a minimum zero time. So it's the minimum time in which it has to be off. You can't turn it back on before that time period is up. It will be because of something physical, that they have to clean it down or do some maintenance. They have to do something to it before it can be switched back on. So for a power station, for a solar panel, for example, that could probably be switched on and off, with a couple of minutes maybe. A power station takes 6 hours. So if they threaten to turn off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they cannot physically be turned back on until 8 o'clock at night. Now, we might not need their power by 8 o'clock at night, between 7 and 8, but we do know that we're going to need their power on a winter's day between 4 and 7. So what they do is they threaten to turn off. 9 a.m, they come to work and they call up National Grid and say, we are going to turn off today at 1 o'clock, unless you pay us 10 times more for those 6 hours from 1 until 7 p.m. Now, the day before, they may have been saying that they'll get paid peak prices during the peak hours. Where they're not needed, National Grid aren't offering them as much money in the later hours in the evening. They can power the UK through solar panels and wind farms and all this other stored up energy we got, imports and all of that. But the power stations are saying, well, you need us during the peak times, so you're going to pay us high prices then and high prices afterwards, when we wouldn't normally be paying those balancing costs. If you look here, this table here, this graph here shows annual balancing costs in millions. So every 1,000 million is a billion. And previously it was below a billion, started creeping up a little bit here. Around 2018, 2019, power stations realized they had this power and they started increasing it. During the energy crisis, they just went too far. They're up to over £4 billion in annual balancing costs. Now, that worsened the energy crisis for us, but it is worth noting that that's about £150 a year per household. So it's damaging to all of us, but it's not the bulk. Our bulk of our cost is still wholesale. Anyway, the graph I wanted to show you is this one. So this is an example of what they do. This is a 24-hour period. This is a day, split into half-hour increments. Here on the left is the power they're supplying. Here on the right is the prices they're charging. And you can ignore these top two lines here and the green line. The ones I want to show you, the purple, the blue, and the arrows. The purple are what they've told National Grid they will provide. So this is what National Grid are planning for up until the day of providing energy. And this could be any given day of the week over the winter period. So that's what National Grid are planning for. And then at 9 a.m, this blue line is what they tell them. So the blue line runs exactly the same as the purple one up till here. And you can see they've switched off. 27, that's about 1:30 in the afternoon. They're threatening to switch off about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, when they're off for 6 hours, which means they'll provide us nothing over here. Unless National Grid change the price they're paying for them providing energy. During the day, they get these are all agreed the night before. But then at 1 o'clock, they want their prices to be up here. So it's gone from £200-300 per megawatt up to £4,000. And they keep those high prices even during these off-peak hours. Now, typically, these should be back down to here. But because they know they've got this power where they are needed here during the peak hours of energy usage, otherwise houses will go dark. They bumped their prices up and they kept them high. And that's where they're taking advantage. But yeah, it is currently legal. And this is why Ofgem are trying to put in regulations now to block this practice. I think that's the best way I can describe it. The power stations obviously aren't happy. Some of them, believe it or not, are claiming discrimination because this doesn't impact, because Ofgem's consultation, or new license conditions, won't impact solar panels and wind turbines and things like that. Ofgem are specifically targeting generators with a minimum zero time, a minimum off time of 1 hour or longer. So power stations with 6 hours will be impacted. A solar panel, 15-20 minutes, won't be impacted. So Ofgem's license condition, they are putting in a condition that says they cannot do this practice within an operational day. There are limitations to the benefit of this, and I've said this in my response to Ofgem, and Ofgem even acknowledged it in their consultation document. Because whilst they're saying you cannot come into work at 9 a.m. and threaten to switch off that day, there is nothing stopping these power stations coming into work one day and threatening to turn off tomorrow. It just changes the time frame by 24 hours. That's all this license condition will do. It does give National Grid a bit more time to, balance if they can, and hopefully it'll bring down these balancing costs. But I reckon we'll still see higher balancing costs throughout this winter. And I think we'll be back here this time next year doing another consultation with Ofgem where they remove the wording within an operational day from this license condition to stop this practice altogether. I reckon we'll have another year of this, which is unfortunate. My response does also call for Ofgem to schedule a review of balancing costs across the winter very early in 2024. If they can start reviewing it in January, February, based on the data from November, December, when the colder months are starting, they might be able to get out ahead of this problem before the really cold months of February, March, and just stop this for a couple of months early. Overall, my response to Ofgem is it's a single page, it's not a long one, and I'm agreeing with them. It's the first time in 9 months I've been able to say this, but I agree with this change. It stops abusive powers from power stations. If you want to get involved in this consultation, My response is in the link below. You can copy and paste it. You can download the PDF at the bottom of that article and send it on to Ofgem. The link will also tell you how long this consultation is open until. I think it's the 27th of July, so you've got a few days. And the email address is to send your responses to. If you don't like my response, if you completely disagree with it, or you've got something else to say, feel free to send that to Ofgem. I just think we need to get involved with the consultations. Whatever your opinion is, let Ofgem know. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the Over 50s Money YouTube channel. Share this video around. Try and get more people involved. Thank you.